Hello, all. So, as we are discussing about what's new in 2024 release wave 1, this is pretty small but a very powerful enhancement in Business Center. And if you have already watched the launch event, you might have heard about it. So, today we'll talk about a feature which you'll not see in the release note, but it's available in MSD and kind of hidden more or less around adding tool tips to table fields. And I know what you're thinking. Tara, seriously, we're talking about tooltips. Please give me some time. If you are a developer who is writing extensions, it's very important how tooltips are placed, where you are placing them, and with the announcement of the features in Business Central, specifically around AI, tooltip are going to play a very key role going forward. I know I'm the culprit of just writing very simple, plain tooltips for all my fields. But when you kind of link it with the whole AI model and how AI will learn from your interface, you will understand the value of tooltips to build solution that helps our customer in a better way. So let's first understand it, what the tooltips are, what happens today, what's going to change, and how much it's going to impact you as a developer, either for PTEs or either for app source app. So before we get into it, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. That kind of acts as a feedback for us, how many of you kind of like this kind of content, and should we keep doing it, or maybe should we stop it? So that kind of act as a feedback loop. So make sure to, if you like the content here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay. So let's come back. And if you're pretty new, let's talk about it. I've created a very small example here for the tooltips. Now let's assume that I have a table. And this is pre-24, BC 24, 2024, let's assume. The table have some fields. And as any Business Center table can have multiple pages associated with it, in this, there is a type field which allows you to choose either customer or vendor or a blank value. Associated with this table, there are two sets of pages. One who cater all the vendor info, and one set of pages which cater the customer level info. So for sure, there will be a list page associated with it, which is this, where there are all the fields. And then there is a cart page which is associated with this list page. The same is true for the vendors, that there's a list page associated, and then there is a cart page associated with the list. So now think about it. There are four different pages. And assuming that in the beginning, the customer only wanted you to create the customer set. So you as a developer created the customer list page and the customer cart page. 6 months down the line, they came back to you and said, oh, we want to add two new pages, this time for the vendor entity, but you were busy, so you handed it over to your colleague or someone else who can work on it. He or she decided to create these vendor pages. Now, we all love this extension called AZAL, which is freely available on your VS Code extension, which automatically, and let me show it to you, builds the tooltip for us. So if I say this, and then I use the table name as SDH customer vendor, and let me create a temp, whatever type of page you want, then what you do is you choose the fields here. Okay, let's do code and name, then address, balance, and outstanding balance. And as soon as I finish, it automatically gives us a tooltip, because otherwise it becomes a warning in Business Central, right? So it automatically gives me a tooltip based on this, and this is not the right one. I guess this is learning based on whatever I have created. But, and let me give you another example. Sorry for that. All right. So let's create a new page again. This time we'll create it on customer table, a Microsoft table, right? We all have pages from the existing tables in Business Center, and I chose some fields here, just random fields. Okay, and finish it. Now you'll notice that it is taking all these tooltips from the customer page, which is already there. But if it is a completely new table, it kind of writes a very simple message to tooltip so that it doesn't give you an error message. That's the whole idea of AGL extension while writing tooltips. Now, coming back to our example, when you were building this page, you thought about these field and gave them some tooltips, actual genuine tooltips. Okay, what these field specifically do. You do it on the list page, you do it on the cart page. Then 6 months down the line, when the other developer is working on, he kind of randomly designed some tooltip here. And instead of writing this, maybe he was not sure about what to write here. So he just said, okay, this is outstanding quantity, the tooltip because it's needed. He didn't know about the AZL extension, and he just used the field name as a tooltip, which is possible. There's no validation associated with it, right? So what happened with that? There are two sets of pages which have different kind of tooltip for more or less similar field. Yes, these different field cater different needs, but the tooltips are different because two different individual worked on it. Now, when you consider AI into all this picture, what Microsoft is saying, if you have heard on the release note or the launch event, the tooltip will become a source of AI assistance in Business Central. One thing. The other thing, because there can be n number of pages associated with one table, the tooltips can be random as we just saw here. And that completely depend on the developer who's working on it. And that also adds a extra level of work that the developer have to do because he have to either use the great AGL extension to kind of automatically generate the tooltip or manually start typing it. And they may or may not be consistent going forward. So let's understand what the change is. The change now is that starting this release, you can actually add tooltips here on the table field. You can say whatever the tooltip looks like for you, right? And this is just an example. Now, what will happen when you add the tooltip on table? So starting Business Center 2024 release wave 1, you can define table tooltips, field tooltips on table fields. When a tooltip is defined on a table field, any page that uses that field automatically inherits the tooltip. But if you define a tooltip on the page, then the page tooltip overrides. So in a real world, what will happen is if there is a tooltip on the table and the tooltip is not defined on the page, it'll automatically inherit the tooltip that is defined on the table itself. But if you have also defined it on the page, then the page will take the priority. Now, why you are talking about it? Because there are two things, right? We surely want to clean this up as much as we can, and it makes sense to have tooltip place associated with the tables then on pages, because you don't have to kind of make your page heavy by adding all these properties. Now, the other reason why we are talking about it is that AI language extension for Visual Studio code comes now will come up with a code cop warning AA0234, which you're not seeing it because I haven't enabled the code cop on this extension, but hopefully I can do that. Let me see. Okay, so let me do the code cop. Okay, I don't see it here. Maybe I didn't did it here. Alert code analyzer. Okay, and let me analyze. Let's see on the UI cop what happens once I enable this. Nothing. Okay, let's enable the PTE extension cop and let me reload this. Because as per the Microsoft documentation, the code analyzer will start identifying these as warnings going forward. And the new warning, which is AA0234, is associated with you must write a tooltip in the tooltip properties for all fields on the table object. And maybe that's as of today only applicable to, and let me try that, adding new code cop. Okay, and let's add the, I don't think I can add the app source one, but let's try that if I can or not. And maybe I have not updated my VS Code and that's why it's not coming at this moment. But eventually, the idea is that each table will require a tooltip, otherwise, it'll become a warning. You can enable this rule if you want to ensure that all fields have tooltip defined. Now, let's understand it, how it impacts you and me as a developer, and how we need to kind of enable it. Okay. And let me see, I guess we can enable it on the sorry, okay, on to kind of do the user setting. Let me do it on user setting. Okay, open user setting, and then there should be code analysis. I guess I have enabled it, but let me see. Code analyzer, modified in workspace, enable code analysis. Okay, it's fair. Let's close this up, reopen this, and maybe we'll start seeing it as I get I update my AI language. But remember, this will become a warning uh, going forward if you don't define the tooltip. And I guess we can see it now. Oh, these are a lot of it, but okay. I don't see the AA2034 at this moment, but it'll come. I don't think that'll be a problem as it's announced. We'll start seeing that. So let me remove the app source scope for the time being. Okay. So now the next question that we have is, okay, that makes sense, that why we need to define this. But now there's a lot of work, right? We have built all these different pages based on the source Microsoft table, standard Microsoft based application table, like customer pages and vendors pages and all. And there's a lot of work sort of how we achieve that. Now, Microsoft understand that you have worked into application for all these years, and there is a lot of rework that's needed to kind of fix these tooltip changes that are happening. And Microsoft kept that in mind. So now at this point, you identify which of these pages have the best tooltip that is defined. And let's assume this have it, right? It says unique code for customer, name of the customer, and then there are other tooltips. Now what I can do is I can then come from here and do a convert page control tooltip to table field tooltip. And this is a Microsoft one. Now what happens with this, that all these tooltips from this pages should move into this table where there are no tooltips at this moment. So let's try that. So when you click on convert page control tooltip to table field tooltip, that tooltip goes away, and you can at this point seems can do it at a field level. It's, hey Microsoft, I think we should be able to do it a better job into it and make it available as an option to completely do it on the page rather than on each and every field. I understand what Microsoft is trying to do. Is trying to choose which tooltip is written correctly on which of the pages if there are multiple pages. But by using this, it'll be easier if we can convert all these tooltip into the tables. So now this is done, and now here, and this makes no sense, but I'll have to manually remove it. So this is not something that I'm liking, but I think, hey, Microsoft, I think you can start doing that work, that we can remove all the tooltip properties from at least the related pages, right? So at this point, all these tooltips are manually need to clean up, which seems a lot of work. And I hope Microsoft or someone else comes up with a way to move this, which is already done by Microsoft, in a bunch for the whole extension, rather than each field on each page, which is a lot of work. And then the tooltips are available on my tables, and I can just publish it as it is. Now, yes, there are some overlapping tooltip in this example that I'm showing you, where there are some fields which are referring to customer or vendor number. So at this point, if I try to run this application where the table tooltips are available, the tooltips are only available on the table field. When I try to access this page, either the demo customer or demo vendor, what I'll notice that each of these tooltip is pointing to the uh, tooltip associated with the table. But if you look at the first one, unique code for customer, this one is name of customer, and this one is address of related entity. This is balance of related entity and outstanding amount of related entity. These two tooltips are based on the type property. So what I can do here, that I can also copy this tooltip for the code, okay, and place it into the right page. And I can say, okay, if you're on customer page, then this becomes the customer, same here. And if you're on vendors page, then this becomes your code for vendor. And as I said, the tooltip will take priority on the pages if defined. If not, it'll reference it from the table default tooltip property that is defined. So now if I try to open the customer page as well as the vendor page, I'll see the different tooltips because they were associated on the pages. So let's quickly see that. So demo customer, okay. If I look at it, this becomes the unique code for customer. And when I open my demo vendor, what I should see is unique code for my vendor. So the tooltip, as we said, need to be associated with the tables because that is going to be a warning going forward. In summary, the tooltip on the pages will still take priority if it is defined. If not, the default will be picked from the table itself. Two things. There is a action which you can utilize to move the tooltips from page fields to the table field. But remember, as of now, as of today, which is 5th of April, these are only available per field, which is a lot of work for all the extension that we guys have built for all these years. Maybe there's a better way that Microsoft or any other extension that are available for VS Code makes it easier to apply that on the whole table by copying it from one of the pages. And the inheritance is based on the priority will be taken on the pages, and if it is not available on the pages, it will inherit that property value from the table itself. Before I let you go, let's quickly see why I think it's becoming important is when you hover over it in Business Center 24, it have this action available called Ask Copilot, which means going forward, a user will be able to click on the tooltip, and then tooltip will based on the tooltip that you have written on the field, will try to get the help around that field using the LLM models that's available, right? Now, if you look at it, it says in Business Central, the field outstanding amount is typically refers to the amount of money that is still owed, outstanding, and things like that. But understand it from this perspective that all this is happening based on the tooltip that we have defined. So our are becoming more and more important when you think it from the bigger perspective of the whole AI introduction into Business Center. So what I want from you, I want you to add into the comments. Does it make sense why Microsoft is making that change? Did we ever paid attention to tooltips till now? And should we be paying attention to tooltips now? A quick announcement. I'm not sure when, but maybe in mid-April, not mid-April, end of the April or May, we may start a learning or quiz series on my Instagram based on so many people who are new in Business Central and wanted to kind of learn Business Central. Those will be simple four question. Every day there will be a question with four answers to kind of start learning about Business Central. So if you are interested into it, head up to my Instagram, and as soon as that get available on Instagram, I'll surely make an announcement on YouTube. But we'll have multiple seasons for it. That's how I'm planning it. And every day, you will get a new question, and at the end, we'll understand how, as a community, we are growing and we are learning. So if you like all the efforts that I'm putting in it, you know the drill. The subscribe button. If you think this is important, share this. If you think this content was useful, hit the like button. And I'll see you sooner than later on the other video on the same series. Till then, keep learning and keep sharing.